The world never ended with a bang, at least not at first. It ended quietly, with whispers in classified corridors and desperate meetings behind locked doors. By the time the public knew anything, the outcome had already been decided. The operation was called Project Exodus, and it was the only plan humanity had left. The first anomaly came from the edge of the solar system, an object moving too fast and too deliberate to be a comet. Astronomers tried to downplay it, claiming it was just another asteroid, but deep space satellites caught transmissions that no rock could send. The signals were patterned, intelligent, pulsing like a heartbeat echoing across the void. Military analysts broke the codes and realized with horror that it wasn't a greeting, it was reconnaissance. Within months, unexplained blackouts swept across entire continents. Satellites blinked out one by one, leaving blind spots over the oceans. Commercial planes disappeared without distress calls, as if swallowed whole by the sky. And then came the harvests. Small at first, remote villages wiped clean. Every human vanished, livestock untouched. Governments kept the truth hidden to prevent collapse. They told us it was weather balloons, technical failures, freak natural disasters. But leaked footage from patrol drones showed vast organic machines descending from the clouds. Bade looked like floating cathedrals made of bone and metal, pulsing with veins of light that seemed alive. Project Exodus was born from panic. A secret coalition of nations funneled resources into underground sanctuaries and orbital arcs. The plan was not to fight, but to wait to preserve just enough of us until the threat passed, or until we found a way to strike back. But space and Earth could only hold a fraction of humanity, and the selection process tore civilization apart. Families were divided in the name of genetics and utility. Children deemed essential were taken, while parents were left behind. Scientists, engineers, and soldiers were prioritized, while millions of ordinary people vanished into the chaos outside the gates. Rumors spread of lotteries rigged by power, of bribes and betrayals, of people executed for trying to break in. Inside the bunkers, survivors heard the world above dissolving into silence. Those who made it underground felt both relieved and cursed, haunted by the screams that echoed through the steel doors. The arcs orbiting high above Earth sent back chilling transmissions. Lights on the planet S surface moving like hunting packs, sweeping across continents. The creatures were not just invading, they were terraforming. Forests ignited with strange blue fires that did not burn, but instead reshaped matter. Rivers evaporated into spirals of vapor that twisted into the sky and fed the alien machines. Entire cities collapsed into glassy craters, as though the ground had liquefied beneath them. And in the stillness afterward, shadows walked where no humans remained. It became clear the invaders did not want Earth's resources. They wanted us. Prisoners who escaped described enormous chambers filled with humans suspended in translucent sacks, kept alive but dreaming. By the aliens harvested electrical patterns from our brains, siphoning memory, emotion, and consciousness as if it were fuel. To them, we were batteries, and our suffering was the current. Project Exodus leaders debated endlessly over strategy. Some argued for retaliation, proposing nuclear strikes against the largest motherships. But every attempt failed. Their ships absorbed radiation like water into sand. Others insisted patience was key, that one day a weakness would be found if only humanity could outlast extinction. Years passed in the shadows of metal walls. Children born in the sanctuaries never saw the sun and grew up believing the surface was poison. Legends spread among them of a world once filled with blue skies and green trees, stories that felt more like myths than memories. But in the dark, hope flickered, because not every plan in Project Exodus was defensive. There was another branch of the project, known only as Division 7. While most focused on hiding, Division 7 experimented with hybridization. They captured fragments of alien tissue during the first battles, splicing them with human DNA. Their goal was to create humans who could pass as them, infiltrating their ranks and discovering their secrets. The results were horrifying. Subjects often mutated into twisted forms, half human, half alien, unable to survive outside containment. Whispers of screams at night circulated through the bunkers, though officials denied the experiments. Yet a few hybrids survived, their bodies almost unchanged, except for eyes that reflected light unnaturally, and a voice that sometimes echoed with two tones instead of one. These hybrids became infiltrators, sent to the surface in disguised expeditions. They reported seeing alien cities growing like cancer over once familiar landscapes. Towers of flesh and steel reached into the clouds, dripping with luminescent fluid that spread like roots. And everywhere, humans were corralled like cattle, led into the heart of those structures and never seen again. But then, an infiltrator brought back something unexpected, a shard of alien crystal pulsing with stored energy. Division 7 studied it and found patterns inside that resembled human neural activity. The aliens weren't just feeding on us. They were storing us, encoding our minds like files in a library. If they could be decoded, perhaps humanity could be resurrected. This revelation changed Project Exodus from survival to resistance. The leaders knew they could never defeat the invaders by force. But what if they could collapse the system that sustained them? The aliens depended on harvested human minds, and without that, their structures weakened. Plan formed to upload a viral signal into the network, corrupting their entire archive. The mission was suicidal, requiring a small team to enter the largest alien construct and plant the device. Volunteers stepped forward, many of them orphans who had nothing left to lose. They wore armor woven with hybrid tissue, disguising them as captives while smuggling in the virus. The bunkers watched through shaky feeds as the team disappeared into the glowing cathedral. Hours passed before the signals went dead. No one knew if the mission succeeded until the surface erupted with alien shrieks carried across the atmosphere. Their towers convulsed, collapsing in on themselves like dying lungs. The skies cleared for the first time in decades, and sunlight pierced through the ash, but the victory was not pure. Billions were already gone, their minds consumed beyond retrieval. Earth's ecosystems were scarred, oceans poisoned, continents reshaped by alien design, and the hybrids who returned were no longer trusted, their humanity questioned by those they saved. The surviving leaders of Project Exodus announced the dawn of a new era. Earth was no longer the same planet, and humanity was no longer the same species. The archives of stolen consciousness hinted that some fragment of the dead might still be retrieved, but at terrible cost. And somewhere beyond the stars, other signals whispered proof that the invasion was only one wave of many. The children of Exodus grew up hardened, their lullabies sung to the rhythm of air recyclers and the hum of steel walls. They would inherit not just a ruined earth, but a mandate, never to wait again, never to hide, but to strike first when the next shadow fell across the stars. Humanity had survived its first extinction, but the war was far from over, because Project Exodus was never an ending, was only the beginning of something darker.